Welcome to Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we're here to talk about what goes on in the village, the township. You know, those government people, they make regulations and laws that affect you out there.
That's right, Elgin. And whether you live in the village of Oxford, the village of Leonard, Addison Township, or Oxford Township, these are the people that you went and elected. And the commissions and the committees that make decisions that directly affect you, whether you attended that meeting or not. And if you didn't attend it, you could be surprised by a very taxing situation.
You could, very easily. As a matter of fact, there's humor in every meeting. If you don't believe it, he'll come back, and as he says, it could be taxing, right? And we also do one other thing here. Occasionally we spread rumors. This guy more than me, but, you know, just bear with us. And
it's always nice to have my rumors confirmed.
Yeah, right. So anyway, so when you view this session that we're doing right now concerning all the meetings, you kind of got to dissect, you know, a little here and there and what the truisms are, right?
That's right.
Okay.
You got the scalpel out?
I got the scalpel. No,
Okay.
I don't. You have it. Did you forget it?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, we're going to go on with it. First meeting we're going to talk about is the Village Oxford DDA, Downtown Development Authority. Mm-hmm. The second one, if we get to it, is going to be the Oxford Township Planning Commission meeting, and then the Addison Township Zoning Board of Appeals.
Oh.
And then finally, hopefully if we get a chance, we'll reach the Village of Oxford Council meeting.
Okay.
Sound good?
Always good ones.
Give me the approval, we'll go on.
Let me see. The time is, okay, go.
Okay, we're going. All right, the Village of Oxford DDA. Of course, Sue Bassarded is the chairperson of that board. Sam Barna serves on it, Rod Charles, Dorothy Johnston, Gino Malia, Pete Schultz, Susan Schur, Regina Woodson, and Elgin Nichols.
You were on that committee?
I am.
Well, then.
You can thank Bill Dunn for that one.
You got shanghaied.
Well, actually, they said, let's take the small straw and give it to Elgin. It's a funny way we did it. No, actually, it's a pretty good group of people on this board. And there's a lot of things going on with the DDA, Downtown Development Authority. One of the things, big issues that they're going to be talking about is the M24 renovation that they're going to be doing in the year 2019. But of course, there's always a streetscape and what's going to happen. And the great opportunity has come aboard in the fact that when they do the streets, it's a good time to also do the downtown streetscape.
And you know what they need?
What do they need?
A good executive director to take care of things like that.
They do, and that was one of the things they talked about, you know, in this meeting. So anyways, they got the preliminaries taken care of, the Pledge of Allegiance, the minutes, of course, for June 19th were approved. Public comment, as usual. Yeah, there was public there, but they didn't have much to say, if anything, nada. So anyway, the first thing that happened was the board chairperson, who's Sue Bassarded, she made a report on Main Street, and she reviewed the Main Street that Joe Frost, who used to be the executive director for DDA.
What exactly is Main Street?
Main Street is approval for beautification, all the neat things that you do for the village in order to attract public.
And there's a certification process.
There's certification, yes, and it's county-wide. It actually goes statewide, but Oakland County, of course, controls what goes on, you know, within our village here.
Right.
You know, and who gets the recognition and who do not.
So who get
so
the
far
gold star and who get the black star?
So far we have recognition, so we're doing a pretty good job. We just want to keep it that way, and of course the chairperson, Susan Bassarded, wants to keep it on the proper move on the way up. And so with Joel Frost being the liaison appointed, he's with the Oakland County now, working with streetscape and that kind of thing. And so
well, he knows where all the dust bunnies are because he was the DDA director.
He was, and he knows the village, as you say, well, right?
Yep.
So glad to have him on board. Also, one other thing that the chairperson said is that the phone company has changed. We're going to go to Verizon for the village.
What were you, AT&T before?
DDA. No, I don't believe it was AT&T, but it was through Toys.
Through Toys?
Through the electric Toys, whatever on the corner. What was it called? Yeah, that company.
Toys R Us? No.
No. Downtown on
Electronic
the corner.
Toys.
Electronic Toys. And that's where they got the phones and the service back then. But since then, they've gone
When you
out of
say
business.
phones, are you referring to just cell phones or the entire network of phones?
No, DDA phones that they're using right now, just concerning the DDA, not the village
Okay.
in this case, okay? They have a phone system already established, of course, through the village. So that's off and running.
Are you talking cell phones?
We're talking cell phones, we're talking interdepartmental phones, intercoms, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So anyway, you got me steered in the wrong direction. We're gonna get back here in the DDA, right?
I've gone off on a tangent again, haven't I?
You have. Tangent boy. Here he is. Okay, so anyway, so they did talk about bills, and there's $8,724.74. They had to be approved, and it was approved immediately. And then the general budget was discussed, and within the general funds, there's roughly about $56,534 left, in the general fund, and that money is there, I think, chiefly because there's no DDA director and no expense going out in that way. So anyway,
Is that largely because of salary?
I think it is salary, that's making the difference
Okay.
here. New business interviews was the first thing they talked about, and you mentioned that at the beginning. Executive director, the first person they interviewed was Cassie Blasek, and she's from Howell, Michigan, and she serves, I think, the Highland area right now in terms of that capacity as a director, associate director. And she has a master's degree in preservation and design. So,
Okay.
yep. And also she has a strong background in marketing and sales.
There's a
as
lot of that
designer.
that goes on with DDA.
There's a lot of that goes on with DDA, that you have to sell certain things to the people downtown. Likewise, be able to communicate with the businesses downtown. That's
That's
very,
right.
very important to get that cross information going. So anyway, she's a grant writer. She has written grants, although she's admitted to not always getting them approved, but knows how to do grant writings. And accounting, she's savvy in the accounting areas, so she would know what the numbers mean, especially when they're in the negative. You would know something about that doing the counting here, probably. There's no negatives here because he keeps it on track.
I don't even have a writing pen.
I haven't read one, no. So anyway, she's had experience also with streetscape and those kind of things. So she's pretty knowledgeable. She's very friendly and outgoing people person. Was pretty much thought, the type of person she was. The second interview that they did was Glenn Pape. And Glenn is a consultant in Grand Rapids, has his business in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He has a master's degree in business and economics from Michigan State. He admitted to being a statistics person. He believed in delegation of certain requirements and authority, and however, involvement with getting a strong involvement with others, within the community. And another thing he said that he was working with other villages in the past as a consultant, so he understands, the streetscape and all the things that come with it. He's been involved with actually streets which have to be renovated, such as what we're going through, that kind of thing as well. He's not a historic preservationist, though. He's not experienced in that area in terms of historical buildings and that kind of thing.
That could be monumental.
It could be, and he said, but he's very code and ordinance, I'm sorry, spit that one up, acclimated.
Oh,
So he believes in controlling that through code requirements to keep the historic districts viable. So with that, we'll be back right after this. welcome back to Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
By the way, the telephone company we were talking about in the phone, system,
Yeah?
you said it was electronic toys. As it turns out, it was
Wireless
toys. Okay, so now we have it straight out there, folks. That was a rumor we were trying to spread, but that company is gone.
It was a whole new company.
It was a whole new company, yeah. And sorry to see them leave, by the way. They really did a good job, I thought, in the community.
Who did?
Wireless
Who
toys.
left?
Wireless toys.
They left?
You didn't know that? They left 3 months ago. Where have you been? Okay.
And the DDA signed on with them?
Well, that was way last year or the year before.
Oh, I see.
Okay. But anyway, that's all. That's all proverbial water under the bridge.
Oh, boy.
It's all gone. Yeah, I can see it. It's like the train down the tracks.
I think we have a couple of loose ends there, but go on.
All right, talking about loose ends. Tony Malia, he spoke up, when they after the interview. Is there anybody else back there? How come only 2 people interviewed? Well, that did raise quite a discussion as to why there's only 2 that they were able to interview.
How many were supposed to be there?
Well, there were 5 initially, and then 3 fell by the way, and 2 ended up, as a selection, as the best selection in this group. And the task force that brought these 2 people together, before the DDA, actually did a really, really good job in bringing them forth. And I thought they were pretty well experienced, although diverse. They weren't, one person wasn't necessarily, I don't think, the outgoing type individual that, let's say, the young lady was.
Okay.
But statistically, mathematically, he's got a good handle on the numbers. So we have to see what happens there. And he's got contacts. So anyway, the reason why I'm talking this way is because after all the smoke had cleared and the train went down the tracks, they did a vote, and there's quite a controversy in terms of discussion on this. And the job was offered to Glenn Pape.
Okay.
So if he's accepted, who knows? I mean, we've seen an evolving door where they come in.
Well, there's a double acceptance.
Yeah.
They have to do some checks, and then he has to
Right.
negotiate with them.
Right. Now, one of the things that came up is that there's been no background checks on either person at this point.
Right. I think they are doing them, though.
Well, they would do that before the person is actually employed, and then
Yes.
and a contract is written. However, normally in business, you would do a background check, before you reach this phase, even to know what kind of person you're working with.
Before you loaded the bullet in the
Before
breech.
you load the bullet in the breech, let alone fire the shot. So anyway, that being said, Glenn Pape is the next proposed executive director for the Downtown Development
Yeah,
Authority.
there-
We'll have to see what happens in the rest of the story, folks. And we'll pass it on when we hear about it, right?
All right.
Okay. Next board meeting is August 21st. Now, let's talk about the Oxford Planning Commission meeting. Mr. Young, of course, is the chair on this, and Mr. Berger is the vice chair. Both these gentlemen have been on this board for some time. Everybody knows Jack Curtis, who serves on the board. Ed Hunwick, who also serves on the Communications Commission as well. And let me see. Callie Rossner-Myers is on this board. Also, Mike Spiz, who's a county
He's a county commissioner.
and Mr. John Nold serves on this board as well. They went through the preliminaries, pledge and so forth, and approved the agenda. They approved the minutes for June 8th and the 22nd. Rather quickly, they moved along. Public comments, not on the agenda. There was audience, but nobody spoke.
Shy. They're just shy.
They're shy people, yes. Very shy. So anyway, maybe you're right. Just want to see their reflections in their shoes. They're shiny.
That's the
They all
equivalent
look
of,
down.
could I help you? No, just looking, thank you.
Yeah, just looking, thank you. Yeah, don't bother me, go away. That's the other thing. Okay, so commissioners' comments, they asked for that right away, which is rather interesting. Usually they have them at the end. We discussed that before. And but this one they have right at the beginning of the meeting, and Jack Curtis wanted to state some things that occurred with the Township Trustee Board meeting. The Planning Commission didn't receive all the information on a project that they were working on, and although it was sent to the trustees for approval, and since they didn't have all the information, they couldn't approve it, and they said send it back to the Planning Commission. And they said, well, what options does this company have? Now, this is the marketplace condo system that they were going to put in. Remember we talked about last week?
Oh, yeah,
And,
yeah. Some controversy about that from the existing residents.
Right. And so one of the things was that they wanted to change the zoning for that area. And if they changed the zoning, that meant in the future that became the criteria. So if this 3-story building came in, condominiums, you could build a 3-story, you could build a 4-story, or whatever you need to do under the ordinance requirement. And they didn't want that to happen on the township trustee level, so that's why they returned it. Makes sense, huh?
Okay.
Okay, and they said, well, what options are there? And they said, well, they could go with a PUD, which is a planned unit development, and which is under strict control, or they could go under a conditional contract with the company, where they can specify only certain things can occur and make it unique to that particular development only.
Okay.
Okay, so those are some options, and Jack Curtis discussed it, I think, quite well, so that people knew why they were getting it back. And they said, well,
They've never said exactly how many units there are.
no, they didn't, and that's because the site plan isn't completed on it. So they need to provide that as well. Kelly Rossner-Meyer kind of questioned some things along the line here too, but Jack Curtis answered all of her questions, I think, to her satisfaction. Let me see, joining in, they joined the SINCOG, which is an organization which is statewide.
Southeast Michigan
Yeah, something like that.
of
Take a
govern-
note.
Something of governments.
You can make it up. Those folks out there wouldn't know. Go ahead.
Take your best shot.
It's on
Throw
the-
a dart.
Yeah, it's on that yellow stack. Put it over
I
there.
see.
But anyway, but what you need to know is that it's an advantage for the township, the fact that this organization, which they once belonged to, but stopped going to because they didn't think they were getting any benefit, now realize that there is a benefit in the fact that they have grant that are available. They can assist in the grants. They provide traffic information. They provide all types of different information that's critical when a township is trying to expand or trying to develop areas.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why they felt it was useful to join this group, so they did, And Jack was just sending this information to the Planning Commission meeting. Audit was also completed, the township audit. And by the way, the township, you folks, are in really, really good shape out there financially.
They've always been.
They always have been. And you can thank
Joe Ferrari.
Joe Ferrari, you can thank
Bill
the
Dunn.
supervisor of the township, Bill Dunn, and of course the clerk, Curtis Wright.
Yeah.
Does a great job. And not to mention the other people behind the scenes that do this.
The ship is above water and not leaking.
Not leaking. Right, not yet anyway. But anyway, they're keeping a close eye on it
You
too.
betcha.
So there you
Good
go.
job.
Good job. Okay, so let me see. They said, well, Kelly Rossner says, well, where do we end with this? Where does this company go from here? And Jack Kerr says they have to start from the beginning. They have to provide a plan, bring it to us, and we're not going to tell them what they need to do. They need to explain to us what they want to do and see if it's feasible. Okay? Smart move. Jack Curtis right on this thing, and so is the rest of the board. With that, we'll be back right after this, folks.
Your Marine Corps' way of life is to defend the American way of life. Every day, we take a stand for our nation, for each other, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Canine Stray Rescue is Oxford's own local dog rescue. Call them at 248-628-0435 or go to their website dogsaver.org and click on the Canine Stray Rescue League link.
Welcome back to Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we are talking about the Oxford Township Planning Commission meeting, and we just got through talking about what the commissioners' comments were, and they had a public hearing then. Marvin Stolen, who's he's the owner of Ace Hardware, located at 558 South Lapeer Road. And what he wanted to have is approval for bulk propane sales. And when he bought it from Tom's, the property from Tom's, he had bulk propane for sale there.
Is bulk propane where you exchange a tank?
Yes.
Or is it where you actually fill a tank?
You fill a tank also.
Okay.
And he's asking for 1,000 gallon tank that he can fill from.
Okay.
So anyway, actually it's under state control, a lot of this stuff. And
I know
but
you can do exchanges at even gas stations and
sure,
stuff like
yeah,
that.
but you got to get a permit for it.
Yeah.
You got to get authorization to do
But
it.
even the ones that have exchanges sometimes don't have the large tank where you can actually fill.
Right. And that's what he's looking for.
Yeah.
And he thought, that since he bought Tom's and Tom had the ability to do this, that it would just be grandfathered and he'd be able to do it when he bought the property. Not the case. Yep. So he did go to the state to find out what the requirements were, and he did pass all the requirements from the state in terms of regulation. So now he needs approval from the township to go forward with it. And they had quite a discussion about it, and they saw no issues. The only thing that they had was a lighting concern, that they asked for additional lighting for where these tanks are. However, he has sufficient lighting around the building to acclimate it,
Okay.
so it would work fine.
Redirect it.
Redirect it. So anyway, make a really, really long story short, really short, they approved it.
Good.
So he's all set. Ace Hardware, you fill up your propane tanks right over there. Okay, unfinished business. They said there's a number of things on the thing that they need ordinances for. One is the food truck ordinance required. And actually they talked about bulk propane, but they need an ordinance for that as well, which they really don't have one other than following the state guidelines.
Right.
Which normally what you do anyway, but you need to put it on the books.
Unless Oakland County has something specific, which I don't think they do.
No, it would be state more than anything.
Right, right.
And then defined by your local ordinances and requirements there. So anyway, the other thing was solar systems that came up. There's more and more people putting solar
Roof tiles.
roof tiles on.
Or roof tile covers.
Or just plain solar cells
Right,
on
right.
their house. So anyway, they said that there's a requirement for an ordinance to be looked at there. And, there are at least 2 people that they know of, or 2 residents that did go with the solar energy cells. However, there's no ordinance to say what you can do, so they just issued a permit. So they need to change that. So that's another issue that they're talking about.
And there's a whole issue, just like with wind power, of what you use yourself and what you try to feed back into the grid.
Right, exactly. Now, one other issue that came up, Kelly Rossner-Meyer brought up, and she said there's a form from the DEQ concerning properties that have dangerous goodies locked in.
What?
You know,
I mean hazardous
waste areas
or stuff.
And
Contaminated
right,
contaminated
and-
soil.
And that every property needs to, go through this process when they sell a piece of property. You need to inform people, if there's that type of hazard on your property. But if you don't, whose responsibility is it? Well, it should be a criteria for everybody to test their property according to her and the DEQ.
Is that usually based on a checklist of whatever business or what have you was there before?
Right, could be, or it could be even the property that you're in, or your house is built on, what was used for fill, for that
Oh, that's true.
property. Okay, but anyway, the way this turned down, there was quite a discussion with Jack Curtis and Kelly Rossner-Meyer, and the fact that Jack Curtis says it's not required for property transfers. He says to do this and fill this form out, and he said he sees no requirement for it. He said that, and she persisted, so he said, well, I will turn your form over to Supervisor Dunn, who in turn will turn it over to our township attorney, who will give you an answer.
But until then, let the buyer beware.
Let the buyer beware. You got it. Okay, their next, let me see. I want to say that one more thing, that you folks out there in Lake Villa, you'll have water by mid-August. The new system will be completely installed by
That's
then.
the township supplied.
Township supplied. Let's talk about Addison Township Zoning Board of Appeals. The number one thing that came up on this meeting, now John Hatfield serves as chair, Lauren Smith is the vice chair, Trevor Haywood serves on that, and Eric Sant and Robert DeWitt, who's an alternate. Number one thing that came up in this particular meeting was a concern over the property located at 520 Hosner Road, which is owned by the township, which the Verizon Wireless wants to put up a tower.
Huh.
Remember, we talked about that before.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, what happened here is that the public was there and it was packed, but it was made very
Is
clear
that the one that was near Kingsbury School?
Yes, right.
Okay.
And so a few items were discussed with the engineer and the attorney from Verizon. There was no discussion on the part of the audience because those had already come before the board previous sessions and had an opportunity to explain what they wanted and what they didn't want at that time. So anyway, it's called a dimensional variance, and what they have is 14.76 acres, and the zone requires for a tower 20 acres minimum.
Oh,
So they needed to get a variance in order to approve this.
that's pretty substantial, actually.
It's pretty substantial. But the way these towers are made now, what they call the omnipole single tower, they collapse within themselves. You know, if they don't blow over like the type with guide wires and so forth.
Kind
And back in the good old,
of like the old telescoping antennas.
yep, in the good old days, they used to have wires on it and they'd fall straight over and you needed 20 acres, you know,
Oh,
for that.
yeah.
You don't need that kind of space anymore. So
Or do these things just bend like fly rods?
well, they might do that too. I don't know. I don't catch much fish over there in Hosner Road. But anyway, so they went through this, had quite a discussion from the standpoint of the people sitting on the board, and they approved it. So it's going to go forward, and you're going
All
to
right.
see a tower out there, folks. They addressed several subjects that the audience had questions about previously. And so if you want to catch more on that, catch the meeting on occtv.org and go to that's our website, and click on programs, and you'll find it out there. Okay, so the next thing that they were talking about, of course, is the William Thomas builder, John Esco is his name, Enco, I'm sorry, John Enco. And he had a piece of property that is R1 zoned, and he's looking to add a garage on it, and it's a lakefront piece of property. So I don't know if you're aware, but on the lakefront, the front of your home is on the lake. The back of the home is on the roadside.
Oh,
You didn't know that, huh?
no.
Well, anyway,
I learned everything from you.
but Addison Township hasn't actually caught up to their zoning requirements yet, and they still call it reverse. So anyway, this guy wanted to put on a garage on the front, and all this was covered, discussed, and then it was approved. So
So does he have to enter the garage from the lakeside, it
no,
being the front?
It's actually the front. Actually, what you call the front is actually the back. So the ordinance really doesn't apply to this
know,
when you
I
look
know.
at it. So that's what they did, is they took the letter of the word. This is actually the back of the building, so the code doesn't restrict building on the back of the building. It does restrict putting it on the front, though.
Why did it say for garages, the side that's closest to the road?
They can't do that because then you've got a setback requirement, 50 feet from the road, for example. You can't have it closer than 50 feet.
So,
So if it is closer and you're on a short lot, you know, like you have on the lake, you're not going to have that space, right?
so they have to have a variance.
They would have to have a variance. So what's coming up?
Well, not too much. On 8-1, you have at 7 o'clock, the Village of Oxford Planning Commission. On 8-2, at 7 o'clock, the Village of Oxford ZBA. And on 8-5, you got the Lone Ranger Parade.
Yes, Hi Old Silver.
Away!
You folks want to be there. It's going to be a great time, and they've got a festival afterwards, and a lot of fun, good things to eat, and
And who was that
lots of
masked?
things for the kids.
And who was that masked man?
I have no idea, but I know who we
But
are.
you can find out.
I'm Elgin Nichols.
I'm Dave Kenny.
We'll catch you right here next time on Minutes by Minute.
See you then.